In the summer of 711 CE, Tariq ibn Ziyad led his Berber army of roughly 7,000 warriors across the Strait of Gibraltar. The waves lashed violently against the wooden ships, as if the sea itself were testing the courage of the men aboard. Wind tore through tents and banners, while soldiers gripped their gleaming weapons, hearts beating with a mixture of fear and exhilaration. The horses sweated under the first rays of the sun, their spirits ablaze with the fire of chivalry. When they finally set foot on the sand, the earth seemed to shiver with a mix of anticipation and dread. The army pressed forward through rolling hills and olive-strewn plains, the air rich with the scent of herbs and wildflowers. Ahead, the Visigoth army, led by King Roderick, gleamed in the sunlight. Their armor shone, swords sparkled, horses neighed, and the men's chests rose and fell in a rhythm of tension and readiness. The Battle of Guadalete erupted in a cacophony of clashing steel and pounding hooves. Horses stumbled in the mud, bodies fell, and blood stained the earth while smoke and dust choked the sky. Yet the flexible tactics and disciplined strategy of the Berbers turned the tide. The Visigoth army broke, and Roderick fled, leaving the capital exposed. The Muslims began their occupation of Toledo, a thriving city of markets, baths, and art. Small palaces dotted its cobbled streets, and the people watched the newcomers with apprehension. Silk, spices, and intricately decorated pottery gleamed in the sun, while soldiers oversaw the reorganization of the city and its residents struggled to adapt to a new reality. As the conquest spread, Andalusia entered the era of governors, each appointed by the Caliph in Damascus. Their reigns were often short, weakened by tribal rivalries among Arabs and Berbers. Major cities like Córdoba, Toledo, and Seville began to transform. Homes were restored, old baths became social hubs, markets bustled with activity, fortified streets were paved with stone, soldiers drilled in city squares, and a modest naval fleet patrolled the ports. Following the fall of the Umayyad Caliphate in the east, Abd al-Rahman al-Dakhil arrived in Andalusia, fleeing assassination. In Córdoba, he united Arab and Berber tribes under a single banner and founded the Umayyad Emirate in 756 CE. Córdoba blossomed into a center of culture and learning. Its grand mosque stood as a symbol of authority and artistic achievement, adorned with domes and intricate geometric patterns. Flowering gardens, sparkling fountains, and bustling markets of silk, spices, and decorated pottery filled the city. Soldiers trained in the squares, horsemen rode with precision, and the navy controlled the coastal ports. Every city was fortified, every fortress crowned with watchtowers. Under Abd al-Rahman III, Andalusia reached the pinnacle of civilization. Libraries housed tens of thousands of manuscripts, universities teemed with scholars, mosques glittered with golden mosaics, and palaces dazzled with gardens and fountains. Markets thrived with merchants and artisans, armies were highly organized, swords and heavy bows ready, and horses trained in vast squares. Campaigns against the Christian kingdoms of the north continued, and each victory was commemorated with fortified cities and grand palaces. After the death of Al-Mustan Sibillar, the powerful Vizier al-Mansur seized control, reducing the caliphate to a ceremonial role. He led campaigns to Barcelona, Leon, and Santiago de Compostela, marching through forests, rivers, and plains with soldiers clad in heavy armor and armed with swords and bows. Victories were celebrated by building cities and palaces. Church doors and bells were brought to Córdoba to expand its mosque, striking fear into the Christian kingdoms and halting their advance for decades. Following al-Mansur's death, his son Abd al-Malik al-Muzaffar and later his brother Abd al-Rahman Sanchuelo succeeded him, triggering the Great Fitna, a 20-year period of civil war. Berbers, Slavs, and Umayyads clashed, Córdoba was plundered, libraries burned, and the last caliph, Hisham III, became a mere figurehead. The city transformed into a republic led by a council of notables, marking the official end of the caliphate in 1031 CE. Dozens of small kingdoms emerged, each fortified with towering walls, their palaces resplendent with gold and mosaics, gardens dotted with fountains, bustling markets full of artisans, and armies training in the squares. Arab, Berber, and Slav horsemen excelled in horsemanship and combat. Among the most prominent were Seville under the Banu Abbad, Toledo under Banu Dolnum, Zaragoza under Banu Hud, Granada under Banu Ziri, and Valencia under the Slavs. Meanwhile, the Christian kingdoms in the north began to consolidate. Alfonso VI united Castile and Leon, declaring himself Emperor of Spain. Exploiting Muslim divisions, he collected tribute and launched campaigns into Islamic territories. Toledo fell in 1085 after a long siege. Its towering walls, ornate palaces, bustling markets, and military halls were plundered, and families fled in terror. Yusuf ibn Tashfin answered the call, crossing the strait once more with a disciplined army. The decisive Battle of Sagrargers saw hooves pounding, lances striking swords, battle cries echoing, and fields shrouded in smoke and dust. The Almoravids achieved a crushing victory, temporarily halting the Christian advance. Yet internal divisions prevented the unification of Andalusia. Cities resumed civilian life, palaces were decorated, fountains polished, markets stocked, and soldiers continued drilling and fortifying defenses. The Almohads replaced the Almoravids, reorganizing armies and cities, improving markets and palaces. But their defeat at Las Novas de Tolosa in 1212 opened the way for Christian conquest. Major cities were partially destroyed, soldiers fled, markets closed, palaces looted, and mosques shuttered or burned. After the decline of the Almohads, small principalities arose, the last being the Kingdom of Granada. Palaces gleamed with gold and mosaics, gardens flowed with crystal-clear fountains, markets teemed with merchants from east and west, armies guarded city walls, horsemen trained, and smaller mosques reflected spiritual devotion and Islamic traditions. But constant attacks and prolonged sieges drained resources, emptied markets, and exhausted soldiers. Danger loomed with each advance of the kings of Castile and Aragon. In 1492, after the unification of Castile and Aragon, the final assault on Granada began. The siege was long, the defenders weak, markets near empty, and the people gripped by fear. Children hid in palaces, golden domes glittered above palaces and small mosques, and finally, the last ruler, Abu Abdullah al-Zobi, surrendered the city keys. Islamic rule in Andalusia ended after more than 7 centuries. Yet the palaces, gardens, markets, and city walls remain, silent witnesses to a magnificent civilization, whose scholars and artists left an enduring legacy in science, philosophy, arts, and architecture, immortal despite a tragic end. In a world where great stories come to life, every click, every like, every share makes a difference. Milky Way. If this video inspired you, don't just watch, be part of it. Hit that like button, subscribe to our channel, and turn on the notification bell so you never miss what's next. Your support fuels our journey, and together we'll keep creating moments that move hearts and minds. So, take a second now, like, share, and join our growing family of dreamers and creators. This is more than just a channel. It's a story, and you are part of it.